to real history. Rome conquered kingdoms, then it made one mistake. Britannia, AD 60. Far to the west of the Roman world, beyond the roads of Italy and the marble certainty of the empire, there lay a land of damp forests, grey waters, and old gods, Britannia. It was a province now, but only barely. Rome had taken it in pieces, and the province still breathed with the stubborn life of the peoples who lived there. In the far northwest stood Mona, the island the Romans called Anglesey. Across a narrow strait, the Menai Strait, the land rose dark and ancient, wrapped in mist and trees. It was said to be a place of druids, sacred groves, and hidden power. And into that place marched Gaius Suetonius Paulinus, governor of Britannia, a Roman commander known for discipline, severity, and a will that did not bend. His soldiers crossed the water with cold determination, while on the shore the Britons waited with cries, torches, and ritual fury. It was a sight meant to unnerve even hardened men. Tacitus says it did. But Paulinus did not come to be frightened. He came to break the island's heart. The Romans advanced. The Druids were driven back. The sacred groves burned. The island was silenced. And then, while the governor was still far away in the west, the east of Britain burst into flame. The woman who lit that flame was Boudicca. She was queen of the Iceni, a Brittonic Celtic people who lived in the lands of what is now East Anglia. Her husband, Prasutagus, had ruled under Roman power as a client king, trying to keep a fragile peace between his people and the empire. When he died, he made a desperate choice. He left his kingdom to Rome and to his 2 daughters, hoping that shared inheritance might protect his house. It was a hope built on weakness, and Rome crushed it. Roman officials moved in. Tacitus says the kingdom was seized. The king's family was humiliated. Boudicca was flogged in public, and her daughters were assaulted. The blow was not only to her body and her household, but to the ancient dignity of her bloodline. A queen had been treated like a slave, and the shame was meant to be final. It was not. In the cold light after the violence, Boudicca rose like a blade drawn from a sheath. Ancient writers remember her as tall, fierce, with a hard voice and a mane of red hair flowing far below her waist. Whether every detail was truly so is lost to history, but the image has stayed because it feels true. A woman standing in the wreckage of her life, turning grief into command. She gathered the Iceni. Then she called to the Trinovantes, another Brittonic Celtic people whose lands lay near the Thames estuary. They too had felt the weight of Roman arrogance. Their anger answered hers, and they came. At first it was only whispers in the woods, then the gathering of warriors, then the movement of whole families. Men took up spears, women packed carts, children looked out from behind wheels and hides as the host swelled under the shadow of war. The ancient sources disagree on numbers, but both Tacitus and Cassius Dio make one thing clear. This was no small rising. It was a great river of rebellion, growing fast enough to terrify the Roman administration that had thought Britain already subdued. The first target was Camulodunum, the Roman colony at modern Colchester. To Rome, the city was a monument. Veterans had settled there. A great temple stood in honor of Claudius. Roman pride had been planted in the ground, as if it could root there forever. But Camulodunum had few defenses, and the people inside it were not ready for what was coming. Tacitus tells us they begged for help as the danger drew near. The answer came too late and in too little force. When Boudicca's army arrived, the city could not hold. Fire leapt from roof to roof. Smoke rolled into the sky. The great temple became a final refuge for the Roman defenders, then a tomb. The colony that had been meant to prove Rome's permanence in Britain was reduced to ash and terror. The rebel warriors poured through the streets, and the old Roman certainty died with them. But the storm did not stop there. London was next. Londinium was still young, a thriving trading settlement on the River Thames, alive with merchants, goods, and movement. It was not yet the great city of later centuries, but it already mattered. When Suetonius reached it after Mona, he saw the truth at once. He did not have enough soldiers to hold it. Tacitus says he made a terrible decision, one that every commander dreads and every empire remembers. He abandoned the city to save the army. He gathered those who could march and left the rest behind. Then Boudicca came. What followed was not a battle in the noble sense. It was destruction. Houses were burned, goods were scattered. The city was consumed by the same fury that had devoured Camulodunum. Verulamium, too, fell soon after. Rome had hoped to plant order in Britain, but for those terrible days the province belonged to fire and vengeance. Tacitus says the dead were counted in the tens of thousands. The exact number is beyond certainty, but the scale of the ruin is not. 3 settlements had been struck. The Roman world in Britain had been split open, and still Suetonius was not broken. He gathered what forces he could, detachments from the 14th Legion, men from the 20th, auxiliaries hardened by the province and the roads of war. Tacitus says his army was around 10,000 strong. It was not enough to match the rebel host in size, so he chose the ground instead. He found a place where the land could fight for him. A narrow approach, woods behind him, open country before him. There he would meet Boudicca. The Britons came with confidence. Ancient writers say their numbers were enormous. Cassius Dio gives a figure so vast that modern historians treat it with caution, but the deeper truth remains the same. The rebel army was huge, and it believed victory was already within reach. Boudicca drove among them in a chariot, her daughters at her side. She passed before her people not as a distant ruler, but as the living face of their anger. She had not been spared humiliation. She had not been permitted mercy. Now she offered her people something stronger than fear. Revenge. The Romans stood in silence. Then the Britons surged forward. Their cry rose over the field, loud and wild, but the Romans held until the enemy came within range. Then the javelins flew. Heavy pila struck the packed front ranks, shattering momentum, piercing shields, dropping men where they stood. The charge faltered for only a heartbeat, but in war a heartbeat can become a grave. Suetonius gave the order. The legionaries advanced in disciplined lines, gladi ready, shields locked, moving with the terrible calm of men trained to kill as one body. The narrow ground turned the rebel host into a burden. There was no room to spread out, no space to recover, no path to turn the Roman thrust aside. Behind the warriors stood the wagons of families and followers, and the field that had promised triumph became a trap. The battle dissolved into slaughter. The Britons fought with fury, but fury could not open space. The Romans cut deeper and deeper, step by step, iron against courage, order against rage. The wagons blocked the retreat. The crowd crushed itself. What had begun as a roar became panic. What had begun as a promise of freedom became a field of dead and dying. Tacitus says Roman losses were small compared with the catastrophe of the Britons. The exact numbers vary in the ancient accounts, but the outcome does not. Boudicca's rising was broken. Rome had survived. What became of Boudicca after the battle is not known with certainty. Tacitus says she took poison. Cassius Dio says she fell ill and died. History keeps only the silence after the storm. No secure grave remains. No final speech survives from her own mouth. And yet her figure has never vanished, because she was not merely a defeated rebel. She was a queen who rose from humiliation, a woman who turned shame into fire, and a leader who made the greatest empire in the world feel, for one brief season, that it could bleed. Britain would be rebuilt under Rome. New governors would come, garrisons would return, streets would be laid again, and the empire would tighten its grip. But beneath the ruins of those burned cities, something remained. The memory of a queen, the memory of a province aflame, the memory of a woman who stood before the power of Rome and did not bow. If you enjoyed today's journey back to ancient times, I'd be truly grateful for your like. It's the best way to let me know that these stories are worth making. I'm already preparing another exciting story for you, so if you don't want to miss it, consider subscribing. I'll see you next week.